Wow, I don't know why that's so loud. Okay, I think that's something to do with the tri-leveler's automatic input adjust. I guess I should turn that down. Let me see if I can't fix that. Yeah, see, now it's jumping back up again. Okay, so check. Check. I think. Okay, it looks like I'm leaking right out of my headphones too. I'm going to leave it right here. No, see, now it's coming up again. Why is that coming back up? Is that the gate? Maybe I shouldn't be using this. Yeah, okay, so I'm just going to try the leveler the way it is, and sorry about that. I will deal with this later. So let me. Hey, Woody. Working on some new audio interface stuff, and just working through the same dumb kind of problems we've had for the last 20 years in digital audio. So I'm not sure how this auto leveling voice thingy is going to work, but anyway, so I I guess, okay, so I'll cut it right here. This is going to be episode number 15, dropping in Pipeline Audio, and just some studio updates and maybe some core questions, but I doubt it. I just got off the Skype with Vern Granger. It actually took us a long time to set that up. There's an earlier video that I'll probably end up deleting, but that had us getting that figured out. And we're still back to the same problem of routing audio around Windows applications and stuff. And one of the big painful ones is DAW and Skype and your DAW and the streaming software or whatever. I know people have all kinds of ways to cripple yourself in order to make that work, but I'd rather not. But one of the ones that kept nailing us, and I'll come back to that later, was even though I had my audio interface set to internal clock, or even when I set it to external word clock from my Midas M32, it kept switching to 48K from 44 or to 44 from 48K. And I just wanted to stay put. And they don't always do that. And sometimes they say they are, but they're not. So anyway, this week I was able to sell my Dante card for the M32 X32. That's on its way to a new owner. Hopefully it's getting to him today, and hopefully that works out well for him. I went and put an ADAT card in. I think last week I said that it had come in the mail. So I put an ADAT card into the X32, or to my M32, sorry. And I had several old Motu devices and some PCI 424 cards. So this is what you used back in the day. I think it used to be called a 324 audio wire or something. I've got the 424s, the slightly newer ones. But they're not as new as you would think. Anyway, I had two 2408 Mark IIs, and those each have 3 sets of ADAT I/O on them. And the M32 has 4 ADAT IOs, so I could use two 2408s to get in and out. And that actually works really well. And, you know, the Motu 424 round trip latency is still among the lowest that you can possibly get. If we go to my, well, I don't want this to make all these pounding noises from the keyboard, so sorry. But if we go to this old chart that I made, that, you know, it's still updated all the time. But if you look at the Motu 2408 analog ins and outs, you're still among the lowest round trip latency you can get. At 44K, 4.9 milliseconds at 64 samples, 7.8 milliseconds at 128 samples, and 13.62 round trip latency milliseconds at 256 samples. So even there, 256 samples on here is lower than many devices at 128, and crazily enough, it's lower than many devices at 64 samples. So it's still an excellent way to go, and that's something I really wanted to talk about in no uncertain terms. I think that the 424s it said on there when they were manufactured, it was like 2005, 2006. So we're talking about, you know, 12-year-old devices that are still among the best performing out there. And I looked at the Sound on Sound page that had the Mark III versions. Mine are the Mark IIs. And so I think they were made at like 1999 or something. I mean, we're talking about ancient devices. It's amazing these things are still working at all. And let's see, as far as I can tell, the Sound on Sound article that talks about the Mark IIIs of these, the article came out, it says, published October 2003. So even the newer versions of these things are ancient. And back then it was the 2408 Mark III, the 24IO, and the HD 192. And so we're talking about these. You can find these things on eBay for nothing now. The 2408 Mark III is just like the other 2408s. It's got 3 banks of ADAT, 3 banks of TDIF, and 8 analog I/O plus SPDIF on them. So that's 24 ins and outs over digital. And you know, they've got their own total, not quite total mix, but software that's very similar. Like I said, these things are ancient. 2003, that's when these things were made. The 24IO is 24 analog ins and outs, no digital, but that's just piles of inputs. And I'm sure, the converters are the older days converters. But what this really gives me is, in this configuration, I've got the 32 mic preamp inputs from my M32, or if you plugged in an X32, plus I've got another 16 channels via ADAT. I'm using 8 of those channels to send from one 2408 SPDIF out to the second 2408 SPDIF in, so that I can send Reaper's output into my streaming software. And that's kind of ridiculous that I'm going to give up 8 whole banks, 8 whole channels in order to do that. But with RME's total mix, I think I can loop that back. So I just want to say, I'll get back to that in a little bit. But the only real problems I'm running into is sometimes there's a glitch, and I have a big feeling that that's happening because I'm also using the WDM driver, so I can use the 424 for some Windows functions like playing Guitar Pro or YouTube or using Skype. Generally, your regular, what you'd use your regular Windows Wave Out or Wasapi or WDM drivers, KS drivers, whatever, direct sound for all your regular Windows functions. I'll say it again. And so I'm using the Motu for that as well. So I have a feeling that sometimes Windows is trying to turn that into 48K. And I suppose I could go through all the Windows input and output devices in Windows sound settings, whatever, and set those so that they're only set for 44K and not 48K. And that's if you just want to use 44K. And that's another thing. Like, shouldn't that stuff just be automatic and we don't have to worry that it's going to destroy the world when it goes to switch itself? But I think that's where the glitches are coming from. And sometimes I see my Reaper sample rate changing from 44 to 48, and that happens when I open up Skype. And so I think Skype is telling it that it wants to be a 48K. So we're having that whole problem. If I was just using it for ASIO and I was using an onboard sound card for the regular Windows sound, maybe that wouldn't happen. If I completely removed all the WDM stuff from the Motus, but hopefully with the RME stuff that won't happen. The other thing is sometimes it's not on at the start, and I think that, again, who knows why, that's some kind of clocking issue or something. But if once Windows is started up, if I turn off the two Motus and turn them back on, all of a sudden it sees it. So that seems not to be that big of a deal. But yeah, when I start up Skype, when I start up OBS, if it decides that Windows audio is supposed to be at 48K, then I have a problem. And I've been setting my right now I have the M32 set as the master, and I have the mixer set so that the sync is coming from the M32 internal, and that means I had to change my 2408s to chase word clock. I had them chasing the ADAT input, and somehow Skype was still turning into 48K. And even when I had the word clock on, it was still turning it to 48K. So, this is just a nightmare dealing with that kind of crap. And I don't know that there's a good way out of it. I wish there's a way to just lock the card up and say, hey, you're 44K or you're 48K, whatever. You just cannot change. I thought that changing that to external and having it set to an external clock that wouldn't let it change would keep that from happening, but I think Windows is still burping it so that the WDM drivers are making a change if that thing tells it to change. So yeah, that's still dealing with that crap. It took us 15 or 20 minutes to get going. When I was talking to Vern, I wanted to show, he had a question about some Reaper issues, and I was showing him a way through there, and it took quite a while for that to set up, and it really shouldn't have. Again, if I would have had set it to the Windows sound card and leave the Motu stuff completely alone, maybe that would have worked. I don't know. But this is the kind of stuff I don't want to deal with, and I don't think we should be dealing with. So anyway, that was that. Let me see. I had some other things that I wanted to say. So I was fighting myself on, I've got the money. Do I go and buy this RME Digiface USB to get rid of the in case these, okay, so these Motu drivers, the last ones that were made, again, the 2408s were made in 1999, I think, or 2000. So we're already talking almost 20-year-old interfaces. That's kind of scary. And I think today when I was plugging the word clock in, I might have broke the word clock input off of them. And there's no fixing that. Things are ancient. The PCI 424 cards are the last drivers for them were made in 2012. These devices were made in 2006. And it requires a PCI slot in your computer. And, who knows how much longer those are going to be around. These ones are actually PCIe. And those will probably be around for a while, but who knows? And since they haven't made a driver for them in 5 or 6 years, maybe they're not ever going to make more drivers for them. So it's a little scary. The RME one is over USB, and that'll probably be around for a while. And RME is pretty good at keeping their drivers up. And plus, with that one, I could use it on a laptop if I had to or whatever. So I kind of like that idea. And I can use much shorter ADAT cables and stuff. So I was fighting myself. Do I really want to spend the money and get this RME one and not just keep using these Motus, because they are cheap as chips. I can go on eBay right now and grab them. But our problems today made me kind of say, I'm just going to order that RME thing. So yeah, I think that's what I'm doing. So that's a Digiface USB. It's got 4 ADAT ports on it. Doesn't have word clock on it, which kind of is scaring me. But I guess I'll burn that bridge when I get to it. And if things really go wrong, I can just make that into my laptop interface. And so the other thing is I need something for remote recording and for the kids when they're playing their shows out there. I either was going to get a Behringer XR18 or just an actual X32 rack, which is, one of those is $500, the other one's $1,000, and so that's kind of an investment. But I do have a Focusrite RedNet PCIe card to sell, and that would get me most of the way there to the X32. It would definitely pay for the XR18. And so I'm asking you guys, what's the better way to go? The XR18, sure, maybe the Behringer thing doesn't sound as good as the Midas one or whatever. And again, I could put a ADAT card on the X32, but it's definitely got enough inputs, and I could use that for recording just fine. It's got the same USB drivers as like the X32 and the M32 do, and I can use that. Most of the onboard effects and stuff. This would be an excellent mixer, control with an iPad out in the crowd. I think the main benefit of the X32 is if I really wanted, I can use my my DL32, the Midas 32 mic preamp rack thing over Ethernet over the AES50 ports. I could bring that with me remote recording, and I'd still have the 32 Midas mic preamps at the school. So I'm not giving up anything there. That's one way to actually do this. So I'm paying twice the price as the XR, and I'm not really sure what the smart way to go is. Like I say, with the X32, I can get all 32 Midas mic preamps on it if I need it, and I can change that to an ADAT driver. But with the XR18, I'm paying half the price, and for the most part, I'm doing the exact same things, and I don't need to carry as much around with me. So I don't know. That's a bridge I gotta burn when I get to it. But I'd love you guys' opinions. Which one is which. For live for the kids, I guarantee the XR18 would work just fine. There's not even a thing about it. But if I do go out to do remote recordings, the X32 is probably gonna be a little bit better. On the other hand, I do have a Motu 896 Mark III USB that I could always carry around for remote recording, and that thing works just fine. So, it's got 8 channels on it, and then it's got 2 ADAT ports, so I could always plug in some more 8-channel ADAT mic preamps. I was thinking about selling that actually to help make the price of that X32, but now that I think about it, when I'm saying it out loud, what am I really gaining by going to the X32 route? I don't know. I'd like your guys' opinions. So, do I just keep the 896 Mark III? But again, that thing doesn't work as good for live recording or for live. I couldn't really. I'd have to take a computer out with that to use live. Where there's the XR18 and the X32 have really, really good effects built on board. But yeah, like I say, if anybody wants that RedNet PCI card, the Focusrite card for Dante, I am selling that definitely. So I could either way with that. So on other news, I'm trying to get some funding for John McLucas to come. And if you don't know him, he's got a YouTube channel that everybody watches. He's a sequencist, and he helps produce songs. He's a young guy, and even though he has a beard, he's still pretty cool. But he works on showing people how to really write and work on songs that way. And I was wanting him to get him out here so that he could work on songs with some of the bands out here, and also I wanted to get 2 classes done with our kids here at the school. And so I might be looking for some funding for that in case the school can't pay. So I'll have more on that in just a little bit here. But it would be really cool. I want to get him out here. He can stay at my house. Good. So check out John McLucas and look what he's doing. You'll find him on YouTube, and really he had a video about how computers ruin music. You know, he was given a response to Rick Beato's video, and it was really well reasoned, especially for, again, somebody with a beard and his age. And so go check out his channel. What is it called? It's just called John McLucas on YouTube. So go check that out. He's got a lot of stuff. So hopefully I'm going to get him here to Hawaii with his videographer. And finally, I think this is all I'm going to talk about today. One of the guys who practices here, Kill Tuco's Connor Purrington, he had a question about acoustic guitars and how much the size and shape affected the sound of it. And as usual, when it comes to things like this, where you know really science has answers, it's really hard to find anything because the marketing machine gets involved, all the really dogmatic religious stuff gets in, and there really wasn't a really good way to answer them for this. And you know, of course, I can take my test mics over to the Guitar Center and we can go measure all these mics, or all these acoustics, but people are just going to say, oh, well, you played it different each time, which is true. Mike was in a slightly different place each time, which is true. But, you know, how do we come to any conclusions about this, you know? And hopefully this is a shout out to Ethan Weiner and Will Gelvin. You know, how do we measure this? And are there scientific resources out there that already have this answered? And hopefully somebody can help with that. So yeah, sorry, this is a kind of a short one. I'm fighting these silly clock issues, and I gotta go for now because I've really got to get the studio back in order because of these silly issues. And I'll talk to you guys next week. Okay. So see you later. I think. Please tell me I actually recorded.